Alright, so for today the plan is to continue to improve the terrain generation. So for now what we have is like an empty view, and if we click it generates the map, but as you can see it still takes a bit to load even though the map is pretty simple. So what I did yesterday, I worked a bit on like off screen on trying to get shaders to generate height like noise map, and it was so painful, but in the end I actually managed to get it, and it looks like, to me it looks like it's pretty fast. I haven't tested it, like did a benchmark or anything, but I mean I didn't have time, but I mean I feel like this is the way we should go. Like right now we compute the noise on the CPU, the image also on the CPU, but that is in the plans to, you know, do it on the shader anyway. And then we use multi-threading to generate multiple, like we use a pool thread to generate multiple chunks, but I feel like we should be using shaders for the noise map. And I know it's possible to, you know, use the texture as data, so we can keep that in mind. Like we can bring back a texture that is going to contain the noise map, and also a texture that is going to contain the colors. So this could be like the noise map data, and we can also have another texture for the color or something like that. So yeah, I mean there are some examples in bevy which could be useful. So yeah, like for example compute shaders, but man, like the fragment shader was painful. Imagine how painful is gonna be the compute shader. Like this GPU readback example where they have like a uint or something like that buffer on the shader, and they can read it from the bevy code. Like that could be useful. Like I think it's this one that could be useful, right? But I think for now we can keep it just like the colors, and when we are gonna need the actual data we'll have to implement that. But for now let's just keep it as just this, and we'll see how we can color it, right, from the shader itself. And the other thing for resource generation, just to go a bit ahead with the ideas, is we can use this Poisson disk distribution to get some points on the map, and then these are just circles which intersect, and these are the intersection lines, right? This is usually, I think, called Voronoi diagram. I guess it's a bit useless because right next, like the next step is to use the points as circles again, so just does that. Well, I mean, yeah, kind of, but yeah, we get the circles, and then we use, this is the height map, we invert, he says, inverts the height map, divides by this thing, which is interesting. Like how can we, like how do we handle division by 0? But it's something we are gonna find out. And then we invert the result, so this is the formula actually, and we get this kind of thing, which honestly looks similar to this but has nicer shapes, right? So and I guess by nicer shapes I mean if you have water in the noise map like close to 0, then it's also gonna keep it as 0. So it's like an intersection basically. So then we can have the resource maps, right? But yeah, I mean we'll still have to think about it because yeah, like 3 patches could be much bigger. I mean, who knows, we'll see. Like terrain generation is open to discussion basically. I guess resource generation, sorry. But as I said, first things first is the shader. And Jesus, this was so painful. Like, I have no idea. The thing that was really difficult was this group thing. I couldn't find like anything about what group means, and I just randomly put the numbers until it worked. Like, it didn't work with 0, it didn't work with 1, it only worked with 2. Who knows why? And I mean, in the bevy example it also uses 2, so who the fuck knows. But basically this is the main thing. So the terrain material, right? So we have to change it a bit to work for us. Like, here we pass, you know, frequency, amplitude, radius, whatever, but we are not gonna use this. We're gonna use something like x and y coordinates of the chunk, and let's hard code the rest. Similar how we did in our own code. So let's take the shader and let's get into the Vim. So assets, let's do a shaders noise map.wgsl. Well, this was the link that I copied. Okay, so I wanted to. I have like this 3-seater for WGSL, but bro, like the LSP doesn't work, honestly. But I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, as I said, we should have hard code this stuff. So let's go into the modulo file and let's see what we can hard code. So let's start with the hard codes. Oh yeah, and I also added iterator to get Cartesian product. I don't remember if I showed that, but yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. So frequency is 1, right? So that means let's keep it how it is here, right? 1. Then persistence. Well, I guess another thing is noisy bevy. Let's search it for the GitHub. So it's noisy bevy, right? So noisy bevy. Let's cargo add it, right? Let's cargo add it. Let's go in the docs, and this is what we are gonna use: FBM simplex 2D. And the reason I'm gonna use noisy bevy instead of noise rs is because this also has shader integration, so we can call this thing from the shader itself. So it has position, octaves, lacunarity, gain, and seed. And we can even check the source code straight up. So the position, the number of octaves, lacunarity. So let's see how many octaves we have. 14. You know, just bring it closer to what we have, but not necessarily same. So lacunarity 2. Then we have gain, which I guess is the default one. So let's see. Oh, I guess gain is persistence, right? Gain is persistence, and that's that. I guess so. So then we have the shaders. The frequency I said is gonna be 1. the amplitude should be where we generate the, like where we call to noise map, right? So noise map, I guess amplitude is also 1. Interesting. So we don't do anything. Fair enough. I think the seed should stay and radius is not needed, so yeah. Okay. Then the next thing should probably be chunk, which should be a vector of f32, I guess. Sure, it can be like this. We also need the chunk size, so chunk position, let's say chunk size vector f32, and that's just because we are gonna multiply chunk position with chunk size. Well, I guess the only thing that I'm not really sure about, let me just enable this, is in this example we just say that we are gonna have a 32 by 32 plane like we do in our own code, but we never specify the number of pixels, if that makes sense. Like how many fragments do we have? That's a good question, right? Like how can we limit that? But doesn't matter, we'll see. So chunk size is mostly for the p thing, right? So p is going to be the uv coordinates. We can even say uv, right? And that's going to be at location 2, if that makes sense, I don't know. And the location 0 is the color. That's, at least that's what I found, right? So, and I mean, that's pretty lame, but like couldn't really find that the good documentation, like the WGSL docs. I don't know. Like how can I find stuff about the fragment shader, right? Like what's gonna be inputs, outputs, what's the possible things that we can use, stuff like that. Couldn't really find the, maybe I don't know how to search, but man, like shaders are pretty rough. Fragment, right? Like in this example, why were they able to use group 0? But fragment shader, right? I took that from here. Location 2 is vector f. I mean, whatever, right? And it looks like this is the color. But yeah, like binding, at least binding, for me it looks like, let's go back to TD example. Binding looks like it is related to this uniform. So if we have a structure here and all of the fields have uniform 0, then what that means is that we can have a structure in here and say it's gonna be bound to 0. And for example, if we say that this has uniform 1, then we can remove it from the structure and do binding 1 is gonna be just the seed 32. I think this should also work. This is how we can split, like, I mean, we can try it. Hopefully it still works. I'm not 100% sure that that's how it works, but I'm pretty sure that's how I understood it. Like, binding is... Oh, I mean, I was scared there for a second. Like, binding is how we... Right? Yeah. It just means that thing. How the variable is going to be bound. So, you know, if you want to have a big structure in here and then split it into smaller structures, that's how you do it. So small note. Okay, anyway, so we're going to pass in the chunk position and chunk size, right? So the final position of the fragment, or I guess final position of the fragment is still going to be UV, but the final position of the noise is going to be UV, which is the offset inside the chunk. Oh my god. UV is usually between 0 and 1, right? Let's check that. UV in dot x. Am I right with that? At least that's what I remember. It's between 0 and 1 or some stupid shit like that. So I mean, it looks like it starts from small and goes up. Or is it like 32? Yeah, looks like it's 0, 1, right? If we divide by 2, it should be half strength. But I mean, it looks kind of half strength. UV in dot y. Right, it looks, yeah, kind of. So I think it's between 0 and 1, right? So that means that we have to... that's interesting. It's between 0 and 1. So we don't even need chunk size. We just need chunk position. So we can do stuff like material dot chunk position, and this should just give us the full position. So yeah, you know, I'm like really curious, how many pixels does this have? Yeah, you know, I mean, it's gonna be pretty scuffed. I guess it's gonna have as many pixels as the image that we're gonna send in somehow. When you send an image into the drive, you know, like here we just pass in a material, so you know, like really complicated. Anyway, so yeah, I think we don't even need the chunk size. Maybe we'll need it, so let's just keep it. But I don't know. And I mean, seed is gonna be 0.0. Let's just keep things a bit simpler. For now, it's gonna be just the chunk position, which should be a vec2 f32, just because we need f32, although it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So this should give us that. Let's go into the cargo toml and let's remove noise, and let's see cargo build. Let's see what the errors are gonna be. Alright, so now if we go into the module, we no longer have noise. We have to leave without noise. We don't have to do that. We don't need, I mean, chunk size still useful. So spawning the tasks is gonna be useless. Handling the tasks, handle the image, then we have discover point. Like, you know, we removed kind of a lot of stuff, but noise map is not needed. Maybe let's take this thing, put it somewhere. I mean, you know, we'll also figure the colors ourselves, right? Hopefully. So it looks like we don't need task and stuff. So, I mean, we just need chunk coordinate, right? We don't need the image. So position to chunk. Okay, perfect. So like when we do discover, all right, we iterate all the events, get the chunk positions, trigger discover for new chunk, right? Here we create a standard material, but we want to create our own material with the nice shader. So let's go into TD example and let's see what we can do. So we need this kind of stuff, right? So let's add it somewhere, it doesn't really matter. So we need this as bind group. That's useless. Alright, so what this thing does, as I showed you already, it's just gonna define the bindings for the shader. So here we need chunk position. It doesn't need to have the same name, like doesn't matter if it's the same name or not. So you can say chunk position is, but it has it needs to have the same type. So vec2, vec2, right? Bam. So then we have to implement the material for it, and we want material so that we can use it in 3D shapes. Yeah. So, and I mean, when you implement material, you have to define, I guess you have to define like fragment shader, vertex shader, stuff like that. We just need a fragment shader, so that's fine. And the last thing, I guess, is to use a material mesh bundle with the material that we just created. So when we create the material here, let's do a switch. Alright, and let's add our material in here. So I guess we can just do that. Okay, and in here, instead of using PBR bundle, which is just a material mesh with standard material, let's use the material mesh bundle, because this gets here like any kind of material and as like any structure that implements material. So our structure, for example. Okay, Let's see. So this thing needs here the chunk position, right? So chunk position that we want to discover is P. And I think it's a IVEC2. Honestly, like, I'm thinking, does it make more sense to send here? But I don't think like U32 and somehow be able to convert it to a float. WGSL. Come on, that was a funny. Okay, I mean, convert U32 vec to F32 vec. Huh. Well, I mean, convert. Okay. Probably say W3 schools. I'm just kidding. Like, I wish you were able to search in this thing. So maybe I can do stuff like this, right? And it converts it, or what? Well, I mean, whatever did. We'll see. I mean, if it doesn't work, then we might as well just chunk position is gonna be P, right? And I don't know what this wants. Excuse me. I mean, I just did that here. Commands spawn. Wait, what? Wait, what? The trade bound from terrain did. Oh, it's here materials. It's not standard material, it's terrain materials. Terrain material, right? So okay, let's see if it builds. Should build, right? And I'm curious to see if it's gonna actually work or not. Oh my god, cargo run. Didn't work. Oh, I have to add the resource also. So in this main function, or I guess, you know, in the plugins, we need to add our material. So noisy shader and the plugin. So let's see if we can do it. Like, sure. I think this makes sense to add it here, but probably the plugin for noisy shader would make more sense to add it in the main function, because it can be, I mean, does it make sense though? Is it gonna be reused? I don't think so, actually. So let's actually just go back to here and add it. Because yeah, I think it's related only to terrain, so I don't think it's going to need. Alright, so if we try this thing, nothing really appeared, right? It's interesting. Shader. So I guess if we say here, let's now remove everything and just show uv.x, uv.y, and 0. So this should do something. Interesting, nothing shows. I mean, standard material. Let's try again to use standard material like this. Well, I guess, you know, default. Pretty weird. It should display the planes, right? When I click. Interesting. Let's just say terrain material doesn't have anything. Alright. Let's go into the shader and just comment this thing out. So like this should still color the planes. And like I really thought it's gonna be that as simple as just copy pasting, didn't I? Holy shit. Bro, this is so weird. Like literally, I really thought that. it's the same fucking thing. What the fuck, actually? Man, this is weird. Just literally did. Like, basically nothing in the shader. How the fuck is it not working? I don't know. Pretty strange, right? Well, well. Who would have guessed? I mean, did we trigger this thing? Like, was the event? Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously it was, because we were able to see the meshes when we were not using shaders. So how come that when we are using shaders it's not working? Did we miss anything? I don't think we missed anything. What if we spawn a random plane in the setup? Did we miss anything? The fuck? Maybe it has something to do with the camera, the HDR of the camera. We can try to take the camera, put it instead of this one, right? Because, you know, it's let's add tone mapping and bloom settings. So is it maybe because of the camera? Clearly no, clearly not. Bruh. I mean, the only other option is to take this thing, as I said, and let's try to put it in here. So oh my god. So, you know, like, obviously let's just copy paste it. Like, not even gonna try to hide the copy pasting. So terrain material, let's take it from the module. You know, like, we only need this thing. Like this, and it looks like it doesn't take any arguments. So this should create at least one plane. It should be visible. Okay, what's the error? Dude, like, this is... I didn't add it. Oh my fucking god. I mean, you know, let's just add the plugins here too. Like, why not? Why not? Okay, and let's not add a terrain plugin. Fuck that plugin. Okay. So, I mean, this should be exactly the... Okay, you know what? Like, that's that. I mean, I'm just copy pasting the example into the main function, and that's that. I mean, oh my god. It's so annoying. right? Oh my god, the fucking shaders, dude. Oh, they strike again. I mean, literally. I mean, you know, it is what it is. I just have to redo everything from scratch. Fuck that. Anyway, so terrain material, right? We don't have any update for the moment, and we don't have anything here. So this is exactly the same as the example. Oh, and I'll be honest, I didn't see this error. What the fuck? Shaders. I mean, you know, sometimes shit do be like that. Sometimes you make a really small typing mistake. I mean, bruh. Okay, let's see. Does it really show that error? Like, I'm really curious. Okay, so that didn't change. So modRS, right? Does it really show that error? I don't remember what I deleted from here, but should be the same thing. Let's see. I guess I have too many debugs and I didn't see the error. Yeah, too many debugs. Okay, I guess. Let's see. I mean, I was debugging just for the. Yeah. Anyway, let's change that. It's so annoying that we didn't see the error. Alright, so yeah, whatever. So this does that. Oh, already all this change, am I right? Because I changed the file name. Okay, let's change it back because neovim. And let's go back to having this kind of stuff. And now we can change it like this. Now in modRS we can bring back the chunk position. So let's see. I want to see if the conversion between U32 and float32 works, first of all. Oh shit, it actually does. But how about the negative side, right? Oh, that's fucked. Like, why doesn't it work in the negative side? Huh. Because that's bad. Okay, let's see. Noisy bevy. Noisy bevy. Simplex noise 2D. Let's see what this thing is. and that would be unfortunate. Because it just means that, you know, we have negative. Oh, I'm retarded. It's I32, right? Because IVEC is signed int. Okay, let's see if we have signed int in shaders. In the shader land, do we have? Oh yeah, I mean, see how fast it is with shaders compared to our initial method. Much faster. The only thing would be now to color the noise map. Right, color it. And figure out how you can bring it back. But I mean, it looks alright. I mean, could be better. It has quite a lot of water. But I mean, being like the zoom level, maybe it's fine. You know, we'll tweak the values. Maybe increase a bit the frequency. So in the I don't know what. Sometimes NVIDIA does that weird thing. So if I just read edit, so if we increase the zoom level, or is it the other way around, like multiply with 0, 1? Yeah, I think you have to actually do stuff like this, multiplying with. But something's a bit weird. Like, why do we zoom in so slowly? Then why is my circle so small? Is it really that? Maybe it's that huge. Right? The fuck? Anyway. And you know, less stuff, probably less amplitude. So I mean, less amplitude is just, see, like, look how quickly it zooms in and out. So yeah, maybe this thing could be increased, and this just adds extra noise. Anyway, yeah, like I was thinking probably, but maybe it's multiplying. Not sure what though. Usually when we do noise, like, let's see the example in noisy bevy. Oh, I meant the example. It was something like frequency scale, right? The multiplication done here, but it's not really how you do it, right? But anyway, so I guess it somehow works. We have this V, which is gonna be the height map, right? And I guess we used to have this mapping which we can just copy paste, right, such that, you know, we'll maybe be able to use it, right? So something like, can we maybe just use chat GPT for this thing? I mean, it should be simple enough to make like a function, right? So noise map to color function, noise map to color, noise is gonna be F32, I guess, and this should return vec4 F32. Let's see if Copilot enable can solve this. All right. I mean, no, it's a gradient, so this is gonna look a bit weird. But okay, Copilot disable. I don't need it anymore, so it's gonna be like, yeah, it's not a gradient. So I mean, it still looks pretty cool. The only thing is it has really big mountains and really big water. The fuck they say? Really deep, like simplex noise, right? Where is it? FM simplex seeded. FBM simplex to deseeded, right? So the number of octaves is how smooth it's gonna be. Lacunarity, noise. What was the change in scale? I mean, whatever. The change in scale between each octave. So like each octave is twice the frequency, right, of the previous one. What is gain? Oh, see? But this is my issue, is that amplitude and frequency start with 1. So I would just steal it, right, from his implementation, and I'm gonna use simplex noise 2D in here and implement my own. So amplitude, we can start with smaller amplitude. So in our old code, was the amplitude that we used? Just want to see what the amplitude was. Somewhere it was near the bottom, right? Oh, I guess it's the default one, and frequency 1. But if I do something like 0.5 in the amplitude, it should be like this, right? Less mountains, less deep water, and frequency is the initial zoom, right? So if I do frequency 5, it should be more zoomed out, if I'm not mistaken. Jesus. I think if I do something like 0.1, it's gonna be extremely zoomed in. But see, like, how steep this thing is. I really don't like that. It's really steep. So let's see what gain does. So, because gain, oh, I mean, I see it here. In fact, we multiply the amplitude by gain. So if we make the gain smaller, each subsequent octave should have a smaller influence, right? But that just makes it look like this. So actually a higher gain should make just noise. Oh, the gain should be between 0 and 1, right? Yeah, I mean, no, like it really feels wrong with this Match Mountain. But maybe it's because, how much is this? Let's do it in Python. Oh, it's 0.35, 375. So most of it is gonna be mountain. I mean, fair enough. So then this thing, it's fine. Let's say, like, if we keep this thing as 1.0 and decrease the lacunarity, I don't think we're gonna get the same result. Yeah. So frequency is actually important to be able to change it. But you know, when I multiplied, so when I multiplied my position here with 0.1 to change its frequency, it looked like really I mean, now it's better. Why does it work now? Weird. Right, so obviously it's hard to scroll because it's really zoomed in, like a chunk, right? So when I put this here, it's actually 4x4 or something. So, but see, like, the camera is so dumb. Because if I do the same thing, let's imagine that it's the same thing, right? I do some stuff and then I place that somewhere here, like this is how it was, right? Yeah, like the pan-orbit camera is pretty bad, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to find a better one. Okay, so it's camera's fault. So if I want an initial frequency of 0.1, I do that. Okay. So, fair enough. So this should be a bit more zoomed in. The only thing that we need to do is apply some kind of gradient and change these thresholds because they are, well, I guess it looks like the position. The fuck? Yeah, something wrong with the camera, I don't know what though. Chunk coordinates. I mean, the translation looks fine, right? So if we take a look at this entity, I mean, they look kind of okay with the positions and stuff. But like the camera doesn't work well. No fucking idea why. Anyway. Did I do anything sus in here that breaks the camera somehow? Don't think so. Anyway. So yeah. Stuff kind of works now, right? Am I right? Position to chunk. Okay. Let me just remove the debug because let's do info. Too much debug for me. Let's see if there are any errors. I mean, looks like it's fine. Anyway. What I would like to do next would be the gradient. So wgsl gradient. Is there a gradient thing? Imagine I wanted to say imagine not having gradients in a shader. Wow. The fuck? It literally doesn't have gradients. It's crazy. I mean, the gradient should be, you know, done automatically somehow. So like maybe I should multiply with UV or somehow. Natalie, you should just use UV. Yeah, honestly I don't know. So gradient in shader. Let's see. So we have like color 1, color 2. Oh, mix. It has mix, but issue with mix is that I don't know how to use it. Yeah, like I don't know how to make it work actually. Let's change this division by a different number. So how about 1024 times 8, right? So oh, I think we do by half of this one, right? So why not just try it? Here should be less than equal, but I mean whatever. Let's see how this looks like this. It still has a lot of mountain range. Definitely less. I mean, it looks really ugly, so we'll see how we can change that. But yeah, like actually mixing the colors would be nice. But yeah, whatever. Let's see. So at least now we have more efficient terrain generation, right? Like that's probably the most efficient we'll get. I mean, it's decent. Right, so I guess it's not gonna be an issue if we keep it like this. So maybe the next step would be to add, see, like the camera here is fine, but sometimes it's really scuffed, the pan orbit camera. Huh, I don't remember it being so bad. But I mean, maybe this camera might be better. Let's see. Yeah, whatever. That looks like for prototyping. Maybe this one is a bit better. You know, like in the end we should make our own, but okay. So let's why not? Let's try it. Let's see if it's better than the current one. also as the thing. So from just use we need this one, right? We need just camera controls, these three. Let's remove the one that we had. So open RTS camera. Okay, I like this. Some stuff with angle. Oh, pretty interesting. Whatever, I think it's alright. Like default settings, right? And then the controls. Let's see how we can change them. So WSD. Oh. This one's better. So button rotate. I think should be button. Wait, we used right. Drag. Mouse middle, I guess. I mean, I think those are the only two options, so let's default the rest. Oh, okay. I mean, I cannot say I like it. Yeah, the other one was a bit better, but it's a bit scuffed though. Oh, this one's not that. Yeah, I guess. But this one is really old, so it's not gonna work. Yeah, like this one was fine then. Whatever, let's keep the old one. is it literally just because it looks like in this direction it's fine. This direction. Right. I mean, but it looks like it's not working that well in. Maybe like in up and down. Yeah, no idea. Whatever, I mean, for now it's fine. Yeah, really curious why it's like that though, but yeah, whatever. So at least we have terrain, right? At least we have that. The next step would be maybe this resource generation. Or something like that. No, but I feel like we should bring back the height map from the shader. Right, like, because we might need the height map to be able to place buildings and stuff. But you know, the resources don't really care about that, so if we go first with the resource, should be easier. With something like this. Something, yeah. And I mean, by looking at the compute shader example, the only problem I have with it is that it uses, let me find it, like resources for these images. And I mean, you know, it's just an image, but we would have multiple of them, so the only problem I have is how can we do not resource but component. So like this part is obvious, whatever. And adding the plugin. See here it creates an image, and this image for us could be like the height map data. But first let's do one, let's like commit. That's fine, I'm using fragment shader, but ideally we would use like a compute shader, I think, because this will give us back in this image the data. Am I right? Or I mean, you know, we can have more stuff. So we can texture store and see here it's like 32 alive, the game of life. So let's try to go step by step, see where we get stuck. Let's say alright, so first things first, we need to create an image. Right, so here when we do discover for a chunk, we need to create an image. I guess size, I think it matters. Like if I do chunk size, I mean, doesn't matter, we'll change this if it's needed. Okay, so chunk size, texture dimensions, texture format. So this is like red F32, right? Anyway, I guess this will make this image be like storage, texture, no idea, usage, texture usages, copy destination, allows a texture to be the destination in copy buffer to texture, okay, allows a texture to be a texture in a bind group, and then storage texture, whatever. Then we had this image 0. So I would say this is gonna be noise map or what? Right, the noise map. Yeah. Would that make sense? No, texture storage 2D, like that's all we need. Texture storage 2D for input and output. No, I'm not really sure how this constructor works, but whatever. R32 float. And like texel format, what's this? Whatever. Wow, no information about it. Is this really like the main documentation? Weird. I mean, I don't care about texture binding though. Can I remove it? I just want it to be storage. You know, for the height map. So noise map is gonna be in here. Like the red component of the image, right? This is U8. Yeah. Then we might need another image for the actual drawing. Another image for the actual drawing. Here it's sprite bundle. Then I had the material. This doesn't have a texture, right? It's like material mesh. And this takes in handle A. Sprite bundle might be something different. So then it's sprite custom size. Right, with the texture and the transform. And I guess we can try to use it. So I said here we have a noise map. But we also need let's say the actual image. So this would be, let's say, the actual image, right? And For this one I want to use the normal RGBA uniform, right, 0 to 1, like this, right, and it should have probably the same stuff, right? So this is going to be the noise map and the image, I think, hopefully. Then we need a sprite bundle. Let's see. So we can do sprite bundle. Put a comma there, which needs something like this, but custom size. So this is chunk size by default, and texture is gonna be, okay, let's leave it as image 0 because we have to add it, right? We have to add it, but we don't need clone. So this is gonna be image 0. Oh, and here we need images, so this kind of resume asset image, right? I mean, I really hate this like this, but it is what it is, I guess. So let's do noise map 0 is images. And I guess I can overwrite it like shadow. From scale. So from translation, and yeah, this should be it. And instead of material mesh bundle, we'll have that. And we need to also add a noise map somewhere. Like here we have these two, right? But it's like a resource, and I want it to be just like a component. So let's see if that's gonna work. And chunk noise map is gonna be a handle image, right? Handle to image. Yeah. So chunk noise map, right? Hopefully something like this. And yeah, we don't need meshes or materials. That's gonna be interesting. So now I think this thing should still compile. So, but I guess storage binding are not allowed for this. Oh, we are not even gonna use it as storage. Or are we? Texture. I mean, yeah, we want to use it as storage. Because we want to write. Yeah, we want to, write to it the color. But I don't know. RGB 832 float, is that a thing? If there is one. I mean, hopefully. I don't know. Right. Run this one. That doesn't work. Maybe it's because of this. Let's see if removing this thing does anything. No, what? Weird. Is it because of that? Or what? Oh, it needs texture fucking format. Oh shit. I don't get this error. What does it mean? Oh, what a long trace. But I mean, pretty useless, to be honest. So, in this cover position, that's the culprit, let's say. Pretty sure it's because of one of these two things. Texture, I don't really care about texture format. Does that work? Because I mean, if this doesn't work, then there's no point in doing the entire shit. Okay, so this did something. But I cannot see shit. That's funny. Can't really see anything interesting, so it didn't like that. But I mean, what's interesting here, it's But I mean, I don't know how this works, so I mean, even if it's gonna be black and white, still some progress. But I don't even see the image, so that's no progress. I mean, that sucks a bit. It's a WTF moment. Right, like I thought that if you spawn as this kind of sprite, it should show you the sprite, even if you use like 00255 as the fill. Why is it not shown? The fuck? Is it something to do with scale? Display factor? Maybe. Wait, I lost it. Okay. Wait, where is it? Oh, here. From scale. Pretty strange, so with scale. Vec 3 splat chunk size. Okay, I'm happy with this. If it would display anything, that would be pretty cool. Nothing. Huh. That's cool. So the transform, I mean, you know, looks fine to me. The sprite has some stuff. Then it's a handle image. I want to say we don't even need to clone the image there. It's the only place. Oh, that's a good question. Here we put it in this thing. But why is the question? Like, do we really have to write to this shit? Isn't it? Oh, maybe it has to be main world, right? Like main world, just so we can see it. Fucking nothing, holy shit. I mean, whatever. Let's just try to go with it, right? Maybe we need to actually call something in a shader to make it work, but I really doubt that. No, like I didn't want it to be a waste of time. Like if it doesn't work just creating the image and showing it. Will it work when we do the shader? And that's a good question. So we need this kind of label. Looks like. I mean, it's gonna be interesting because we have chunk and image is gonna be in the texture, so we can get it like this, right? We can get the handle image, so it's not a big deal, like we can easily take that. Okay, let's do the plugin. Game of life label. Let's make another label. So now this is interesting, right? Like it's, you would think, okay, so we no longer need terrain material. Noisy shader plugin, that's fine. Right, that's needed. Discover position, sure. It's like the set up, right? Or maybe should we make another plugin? For compute. You know what? Let's do that. Why not? So this is gonna stay like this. Right? Like this is the main plugin. Bam. It creates the sprites and whatnot, and then we are gonna have this thing. So this is like terrain compute. I don't know this one how it's gonna be done, honestly. Render app, render crap. Prepare bind groups, we're gonna need that. Render graph. And here we need to say terrain label. We'll need a terrain node. And then something like this. So I need to make that world mute. Maybe that's gonna work when we do, I don't know, stuff like that. And here it's terrain pipeline, which I think can be a resource. But this part right here, I'm not sure. Game of life images. Like, we are either gonna have like a vec of images, like not really a vec, but a hash map from like entity of the chunk to these two images, or is it gonna work with components? We'll have to see. So bind groups, I don't know, but it looks like For some reason it yeah, even this actually insert resource. I mean, dude, come on, what the fuck? Is this thing used anywhere else? It's used here. So it takes the first one. Literally, what the? Wait, no. We bind groups. Where is this thing used? It's used here. And in update. Oh, I see why. Because it, yeah, I mean, it's the weird switching them. Okay, I see, that's why it needs two updates here. But we only have one. Damn, that's... Jesus. No, yeah, that's like a good question. Like, I think a compute shader like this makes sense because you have like some sort of state, but we don't need that. We just need to write stuff in a texture, and that's that. Like, we don't care about doing fancy stuff, you know. Like, does it really make sense to go for a compute shader? That's a good point, because yeah, here it's like update 0, it's one step then the other one, and it goes back and forth between them because that's how Game of Life works. It's based on the previous state. But in our case it's not really that. It's like computing it once and that's that. So we don't even need the update unless we do, you know, but we only need mostly the init. So that's also a thing. We just need an init like this. Which is just gonna initialize the textures. But obviously if we want to add water animation and stuff, I mean, no, like water animation is gonna be just a simple fragment shader. I don't see why you need to do compute shader for that. So that's interesting. Like, there's also the example of readback. Where is the readback? Which has like a buffer. Yeah. interesting problem if we need compute shaders or not. I would say probably not really, because we don't have any updates. I don't know. Like, sure, would be interesting. Like, if we manage to set it up, it's gonna be useful, right? Because we are gonna have it, like, all the boilerplate out of the way, and it should be then easy to use it for extra things. But the hard part is setting it up, so I'm not sure if it's worth it, right? To invest. I mean, it's probably gonna be really painful to get it up and running. But, I mean, let's still try. It should be interesting. So we are in this thing, right? We need prepare bind groups, we need terrain node and terrain pipeline. And what I've noticed is that bind groups, it's a resource, but it should be okay, so if you are in the render phase, or how it's called, whatever stage, like, it's update, but it's render, you run this system prepare bind group if whatever, if you are in the set prepare bind groups. Okay, and here you insert a resource. No, I'm just thinking, maybe we want to not necessarily insert resource, but add that thing to our chunk entity, right? Like, that's my idea. Add this thing to our chunk entity, like, not using resources so far. So we can define the bind groups as a component, right? We can define our terrain bind groups as a component, let's say. Bind group, oh shit, okay. Oh wow, so many. Anyway, so now we can define this system. I would do it like this. So prepare bind group, we have pipeline, and honestly pipeline looks like a resource, right? Because it has like init, it has this crap which doesn't seem to I don't know though. Like, it feels like it should be a resource. Or what? right? Like it seems like the pipeline is just the definition of how the shader is gonna be, like the layout of the shader. It's not really something that we are gonna have multiple times, I think. So I think pipeline is fine. So this should be terrain pipeline. Then we have GPU images, which seems like GPU image is a resource. Am I right? But terrain images, or I guess let's say terrain query is gonna be maybe something like query and shish, we want the image. We also, I think we need to specify like this. We also want the noise map. So noise map is chunk noise map. Chunk noise map, I think also like this. Can I say with chunk? So I think okay, I mean I should have looked on the branch that I'm using. Who knows what updates this got? Oh wow, we are cooked. We are indeed cooked. I guess it doesn't matter, this used only one image, so shouldn't be big of a difference, honestly. Oh no, we are cooked indeed. Damn. We are cooked with the GPU image. Ooh. That's gonna be rough. Anyway, so I think that's good. And I also want the entity here, so entity. So next step is to do a for loop. Entity image noise map. Terrain query dot intuiter or something. I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So this is entity handle image and the chunk. Can I say chunk noise map? Just to, yeah, perfect. So now here I need image and noise map. Oh, what the fuck? Wait 1 second. It's texture. Yeah. I mean, I need the handle, so am I stupid? So I need the GPU images. Alright. Well, I mean, obviously that's how it works. The GPU image, that was interesting. Anyway, let's do bind group next. So we're gonna have bind group 0. Bind group. It's only one. Obviously. Create bind group. Whatever. None. Then we need to pass in whatever the fuck this is. Texture bind layout. And this should be single but. And here we pass, sequential. Okay, fine, sequential. Sequential it is. Sequential it is. So, I mean, that's that. And here we need to do something like commands entity insert. Let's try to insert terrain bind groups, and can we pass in bind group? I think so. So this should be only one bind group because we don't switch them around. I mean, it's fine. Well, I would say it's decent so far. We need to do the node and the pipeline. So let's see. I said the pipeline, maybe it's gonna be a resource. Terrain pipeline. So, right, maybe it's gonna be a resource. Like, the only way is to have it as a resource. Looks like. So, it better be a resource. Otherwise, we are cooked. I mean, so this thing, we're gonna have an init pipeline and an update pipeline. So init pipeline and update pipeline. Now the thing is, I don't really care about update, honestly. So this is gonna be the terrain pipeline. Render device, the whatever group. Fuck. Oh, I know. It's God fucking damn it. So it's because of this thing. Oh shit. I mean, obviously makes sense. I guess then chunk. I mean, I hate that we have two handles, but chunk compute data, right? And we are gonna have two handles. So one will be image and one will be noise map. And here we have storage. Oh my god. I'm just curious. Oh, so here it used RGBA unorm, which is interesting. Let me also change this to 13.2. Storage texture. So RGBA did what? I mean, we'll handle that later, but so here it used RGBA unknown. Fine. Alright, render world, stuff like that, sprite bundle. Doesn't really matter. Unless here we actually need to say image and noise map. Oh, and this is compute data. So how did, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. We already have all of that. This is just add plugin. Did this one. We need to add the S-bind group, right? To this one, hopefully. Oh, storage texture 1, right? Perfect. So, I mean, it's mostly right. It should be mostly, oh my god, right. Oh, right only. Is that fair to say? That is gonna be right only. Because we just spew thing into it, whatever. So here we no longer have that, we have chunk compute data. Right, like this. So it's already that, perfect. And then here we can say terrain compute. Oh no, fuck, chunk compute data. Right, looks like it's not complaining, that's good. Terrain, oops, noise map, whatever. this one's fine. Compute. Okay, so I copied pasted this one, right? Game of Life pipeline. I don't think it's the old one. Yeah. So compute pipeline descriptor. This is gonna be like what? This is gonna be init pipeline. No label. Texture bind group. Whatever this shit is, and this is the name, right? We need a cow. No, what the fuck? We need a cow, but we need a cow for the entry point. And here we need to return the terrain pipeline. So terrain pipeline. Bam. Perfect. The only thing that's left. Okay, so in the build, so in plugin implementation, I see still no idea how to do this one, but I don't think we are gonna need it. So it's world. Resource mutable. So it works like that. Okay, easy. So after we do bind group and the pipeline, we need these states, right? We need game of life state, which is actually terrain node. Oops. And we need a terrain state. The fuck? But I didn't even notice I wrote that, so okay. So we need to implement default. Well, if you ask me, derive default, it's the easiest way to do it. And then derive default. Okay, anyway, like we don't have to write, what, 5 lines of code. And now it's the nasty one, I guess. The render graph. So let's try to implement a node for our terrain node. Although it's more like chunk node, but terrain node, fine. Pipeline. Looks like we need the terrain pipeline. Then if we are in terrain loading, we need this crap, and we need to set the state to init. Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. If we are in terrain state init, we do some stuff and we go to update. Obviously, it's like a state machine, and update doesn't do anything, looks like. Then we need a render context, and now we are cooked. Well, a bind group what was our bind group? Terrain bind groups. We are cooked indeed. Terrain bind group. Well, actually it's called but indeed we are cooked. can we by any luck do something world.component? We are not cooked anymore, man. Yeah. Yes, we are not cooked. So we get a I mean, we are still cooked. We are still cooked, bro. Because we need entities, actually. But this is so cooked, dude. Like, getting all the entities is extremely cooked. Yeah, I really hate this because we cannot do queries. Like, sure, getting this resource, whatever, it's oh so easy, but add plugins. But actually doing, like, as I said, maybe it makes sense to have like a mapping. Because the issue here, the issue is that we compute bindings crap, is that we have a lot of images and a lot of noise maps, right? We don't have only one. And that's the issue. That's the main issue. So when we create the terrain bind group, we have to create one for each combination. Sure, we could have a resource that has that mapping I talked about, mapping from entity to bind group. It sucks, but it might solve our issues. Sucks, but it might actually solve our issues. But even then, let's imagine that we get here, we get a thing, and we do a for loop over it. Alright, let's imagine that we do a for loop over it. How is that gonna help us? Set pipeline, like, terrain node. Where do we insert the terrain node? Maybe we have to add a node for each component. This doesn't sound too good, honestly. That doesn't sound too nice. Oops, sorry. Like, no, terrain node should be only one. It's just like a pipeline, like a shader pipeline. We pass in the images and we get back the outputs. It doesn't need to be this complicated. Why is it so complicated? Why can't we just call this shit, right? I mean, we have to create a bind group for each one. That's, I think, makes sense to me. Create one bind group because this is basically the input to the shader. I mean, the input and the output. So we need to create that for each entity that needs to run on this pipeline. Oh, that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is So the terrain pipeline, this just defines how, you know, what are the inputs, which is the shader, the functions that we want to have, like init and update. Pretty self-explanatory. And then we have to implement the terrain node. So terrain node should be probably done in here. So you say, okay, it's a node in the graph, right? It's a node in the shader graph. So what should this do? So this is like an update. Depending on the state, you do some shit, and then you have a run, which actually runs. I don't get why it's like this. It feels a bit strange why it has to be like this. So begin compute pass. So let's say we take the texture bind group. What do we do with the texture bind group? Pass set bind group. So I kind of want to run this thing on each component. So then how can I do that? Because texture bind group is the reference to our images that we want to, you know, set as group 0 apparently. So maybe this is what group is, the thing that I complained about in the beginning. But how can we, so question is, do I need to create, it doesn't make sense to create a node for each thing. It makes sense to have only one node. Let's see, should I have one node per entity in shader? I don't know. Like it feels like the node is more or less the name of the shader that I want to run. So why does it have to be like this? So because the other thing is terrain node might be able to hold a reference to an entity that is responsible for, let's say. So that means that when we create the terrain node, we can pass it an entity, but that means modifying the app at runtime. That doesn't make sense. Like even saying that terrain node holds a reference to all of the entities doesn't make sense, because we create entities in update, not in begin or whatever that was. So yeah, this is really weird. Like even if we get all the entities, we cannot say begin compute pass. Doesn't make, oh my god, doesn't make any fucking sense. Because sure, yeah, sure, why not? Here we have only one, but what if I have multiple? Right, like what if I have multiple things? I mean, to me it makes no sense why node is implemented like this. Like it doesn't really allow you to run it on or maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Now, would make sense for terrain node to have a reference to entity, but then like we have multiple terrain buying groups. And the terrain buying group is what we need to pass as the input. So, but it's not like it's gonna be a for loop here, right? Like, the fuck? Yeah. Kind of sucks, honestly. No idea how we can do that. So can we search bevy compute shader multiple entities? Okay, I mean, like, I don't care, like, this should be easy to do, but new material API. But yeah, I guess I have to do more research on this one, so I guess we'll see in the next one.